Jing did not abandon Gon. Well, he did, but that was only after he didn't. Yes, it is confusing, but let's examine the biggest myth in Hunter x Hunter. Hello and welcome to the NewWorldReview, your source for everything anime and manga. My name is Liam and I come from the real-life dark continent, Australia. But today we're here to discuss this whole Jing abandonment myth. Because what would you say if I told you that Jing both did and did not abandon Gon, depending entirely on how you consumed Hunter x Hunter? Well, that's true. Depending on whether you read the manga or watched the anime, Jing freaks can either be seen as some sort of grand stoic hero or some sort of slimy deadbeat daddo. That's a pretty big impression gap there. And all of it stems from a gigantic change that the anime made from the manga that no one ever really seems to notice. So let's go ahead and bust the biggest myth in Hunter x Hunter. And it's all going to begin with a quick round of Gone with the Wind, a very simple minigame, the rules of which are as follows. A strong gust of wind has blown Gon away, and it's going to be your job to guess which of the following locations he will land on. Should you guess incorrectly, then your punishment will be to subscribe to the NewWorldReview, thus resulting in consistent injections of Hunter-based culture administered directly into your YouTube feed. And if you are correct, then you will win a thumbs up from Mr. Gon. So which location will it be? Whale Island, Greed Island, or Dark Big Island continent? Make your choice now and we shall reveal the answer in 3, 2, 1, and bam, it was Whale Island. So if you guessed incorrectly, then you know the thing to do, and please do say hi in the comments below if you are a new member of our association. Welcome. Whale Island is important though, because that's where this whole abandonment myth spawns from, and it's kind of the anime's fault. So I've said it before, I'm saying it now, and I'll say it at least one other time in the future. But the 2011 Hunter x Hunter anime is one of the best adaptations of anything I think I've ever seen. It's almost everything one can ask for. Solid animation, beautifully crisp art, and for the most part, incredibly engaging pacing. However, like everything in existence ever, there are still problems, and weirdly enough, almost all of those problems, including the myth we are exploring here today, stems from this very first episode. Episode 1 of 2011 Hunter x Hunter, in many ways, is quite the disaster, because a conscious decision was made to significantly speed up the events of the story so that Gon ends up meeting Kurapika and Leorio by the time the episode ends. And I get why this was done, because it is a nice idea to introduce most of your main characters in a single sitting and get people intrigued. The issue is that to do this, the 2011 anime needed to take the 30+ pages of chapter 1 and condense it down to roughly 5 minutes. Now I like quick pacing, but that's too quick. And as a result, a lot of stuff needed to be cut, such as Gon's flashback with Kite, which is very unfortunate because that gives us the entire reason why Gon wanted to become a hunter, and it also cuts the character of Kon, the fox bear that Gon adopted and raised, which is sad because seeing the adult Kon is an indicator to us as the audience that Gon is capable of keeping his promises and has matured to the point where he's actually ready to venture out into the world. But the most majorest of changes of all is one that almost nobody picks up on, because in the manga, just prior to leaving, Gon and Mito have a very interesting discussion. One where she reveals the truth behind the whole Jing situation, and she says the following: "Gon, I'm sorry. I lied to you again. Jing didn't abandon you. I made him give you up." To which Gon replies, yeah, I kind of figured that. Whenever you lie, you never look me in the eyes. So Jing didn't abandon Gon. What? So this is very counter to what the 2011 anime tells us, quite polar opposites really, because in episode 1, as Gon is packing to leave, Mito very specifically reminds Gon that his father abandoned him. And when we do get to the conversation outside, their dialogue has changed completely. Instead of revealing the truth that Jing did not in fact abandon Gon, Mito instead just makes Gon promise to come back safely. And then they do a sort of cutesy pinky promise thing that also is not in the manga. So in the space of almost exactly 5 minutes, the Hunter x Hunter anime and the Hunter x Hunter manga have become almost entirely different stories. In the manga, Gon is looking for his father, a man who was forced to give up his son due to Mito's actions. Meanwhile, in the anime, Gon is looking for his father once again, but he's a man who dumped him on Whale Island because he wanted to pursue his own selfish goals. This creates two very different impressions of Jing. One is a legendary and almost sympathetic hunter, and the other is simply a bit of a deadbeat dad. At the very least, I think that Jing could have helped this by doing a course with the sponsor of today's video, Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of inspiring classes for creative and curious people. Explore new skills, develop existing interests, and get lost in creativity. Recently, I've done a course in productivity for artists because I'm always looking for new ways to manage my time efficiently, and I've picked up quite a few handy things to implement. But Skillshare is curated specifically for learning, meaning that there are no ads. And they're always launching new premium classes so you can stay focused and follow wherever your creativity takes you. Skillshare offers membership with meaning, connect with the support of fellow creatives, and enter a community of encouragement, communication, and of course, inspiration. Plus, the first 1,000 of my subscribers to click the link in the description will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare so that you can start exploring your creativity today. But now, back to allegedly deadbeat dads. And now before we all start going rah 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 anime, rah rah, hashtag justice for Jing, rah rah, this isn't a change that was made for a trivial reason. There are changes in the 2011 anime that I do think legitimately hurt the series, like the aforementioned omission of the kite flashback. However, this is a change that I think was quite carefully considered. And to put it quite simply, the change was made to reflect the modern day Jing. What do I mean by that? Well, as I've said many times on this channel, what Hunter x Hunter started out as and what it became are two entirely different products. The first chapter of Hunter x Hunter is about as standard of a shonen series as you can get. Young boy with latent desire and big dreams gets given final push to go on grand journey. And with that one sentence I've just described probably every shonen in existence. It's very well written, but honestly there's nothing too special about the first chapter of Hunter x Hunter. However, as part of that stock standard shonen formula, Jing makes up a very specific piece in that puzzle. Interestingly, he's sort of like a blend between the mentor and the goal. And a rough equivalent I would have for this is Shanks from One Piece. You know, Luffy's goal is to become a great pirate, at which point he will return Shanks' hat. Gon is, and I use these words quite liberally, on a similarly set up journey. He wants to find his father and return his hunter's license. A father who in chapter 1 is almost a paragon of morality and just general amazingness. You know, Kite practically verbally jerks Jing off in this chapter, just gushing about how amazing he is. And even Mito has to admit that the one and only bad thing that Jing has ever done in this world was actually kind of her fault. So Jing is very much set up to be our standard wizened, powerful shonen mentor guy. Now, regardless of any changes that were made in the anime, that's not quite what Jing turned out to be. As Hunter x Hunter evolved over the years, so did its author Yoshihiro Togashi, as did the characters of the series and arguably even the overall genre of Hunter x Hunter. I would honestly describe it as more of a seinen story these days, and the character who almost certainly changed the most over this time was Jing. By the time Jing actually made a non-flashback appearance in the story, we had gone through some radical waves of evolution. York New City had brought us a much darker and more complex world, which Greed Island and the Chimera Antark built and expanded on even more. At this stage, Togashi was no longer interested in guiding Hunter x Hunter down the shonen pathway, and very much like the evolution of his ant characters, the series had become completely unrecognizable from its original incarnation, and there was no room for this idealistic and nigh on perfect Jing freaks that was presented in chapter 1. Instead, the antithesis was brought before us. Jing is portrayed as a sloppy, selfish, and pretty seriously despised figure within the Hunter Association, and this could not be further from the almost heroic description from Kite in chapter 1, or even the general admiration expressed by Satots at the end of the Hunter exam. It's a complete subversion of expectation, and not one that was planned from the beginning, but a subversion that had naturally developed alongside Togashi. So much so that when you look back on the early days of Hunter x Hunter in general, seeing or hearing anything of Jing is like referring to an entirely different character. Now, when the 2011 anime began, they had the advantage of knowing what Hunter x Hunter would become. Unlike Togashi drawing the manga, they had a roadmap clearly marked with all of the crazy left and yes, even sometimes right turns. So far right that they became left, which then went so far left that they became right, and it all just went in a big Hunter x Hunter circle-y thing. So while the first episode wasn't strictly speaking a faithful adaptation with this whole Jing business, it does actually reflect the greater story and world far more accurately. Regardless of where he started out, Jing ended up being a bit of a junk father. It wasn't a job that was ever suited to him, and whilst he did have some care for and even impart some gems onto Gon, they really don't have that solid familial bond, you know, the kind that Gon has with Mito. And that's another reason why this change was made, because it's not just about reflecting modern day Jing, but about reflecting Mito. In chapter 1, she almost comes off as a bit of a villain, effectively admitting that she is the reason why Gon doesn't know his father, and the last piece of dialogue we have of her is apologizing profusely, which needs Gon's forgiveness. It's a nice dramatic moment, but the 2011 anime instead chose to enhance their bond rather than break it down. Instead of descending into this drama, Gon and Mito have a solid pinky promise thing, and the last thing they see of each other are smiling faces. As an audience, we are left with no doubt at all concerning this relationship. Whereas in the manga, we're kind of like, you know, Mito, that was kind of a dick move, and Gon is a big man boy for forgiving you, because that's what shonen heroes do. They forgive people for things. And this also has an effect on Gon's character as well. The whole line where he states that he knew Mito was lying in the manga, makes him out to be an extremely emotionally intelligent young man. Someone who may not have all of the book smarts, but he clearly understands the world around him on a very primal level. And that's the sort of Gon that we see a lot of during the Hunter exam arc, and then just never again. As Gon continues in Hunter x Hunter, his flaws become a lot more apparent, and a big crux of the character is him not understanding the feelings of those around him. The best example of that being, of course, Killua. Past the Zoldyck family arc, Gon is completely oblivious to Killua's emotions, and it just doesn't quite gel with the character that we're given in Chapter 1. So in that way, the 2011 anime Gon is a bit more consistent. However, this is far from a perfect seamless change, and it does definitely make some things a bit more difficult to reconcile. For example, a lot of people often question why Gon is so determined to find Jing, or why he doesn't resent his father for leaving him. And the initial offering of the manga sums all of that up quite nicely. Gon isn't capable of resenting his father because it wasn't Jing's fault that he had to leave. Once again, it was technically Mito's fault. And sure, she obviously had Gon's best interests at heart, but that doesn't change the action itself. Plus, with a lifetime of having his father forcibly removed from his life, all of a sudden it does make a lot of sense to want to go and find him. Although that aspect is far more prevalently pushed by the Kite flashback. So it's a tricky issue to adjudicate because both parts have their advantages and their pitfalls. What the manga did was a stock standard cohesive setup where Gon's motivations make 100% solid sense, and it's very easy to embark on that journey. However, what the anime did was more accurate to what the story was going to become. And I do think it does a better job of making the realities of the world itself a little bit more cohesive, as well as highlighting the bond between Gon and Mito. So as radical of a change as it is, I do think it was probably the right decision to change this one massive conversation. And sure, you can argue that, hey, this isn't fair on Jing, he gets a pretty bad rap for the whole child abandonment thing, but that is the man that Togashi eventually chose to create. All this change really does is remove that initial illusion, and it gives the anime audience a much more accurate sense of what to expect from Jing, because this world has no heroes, and whatever Jing was meant to be when Togashi began the series has no place in what it became. But that still does leave us with the rather annoying question of, did Jing abandon Gon? Because canonically, I guess, no, he didn't, I think. I mean, this is one of the big problems with a writing style like Togashi's, because his naturally developing garden doesn't necessarily reflect the seeds that he used. And I did say at the beginning of this video that the answer to this question depends entirely on which medium you consumed in Hunter x Hunter, but it's actually more complicated than even that. Even if we restrict our focus to the manga alone, there are two very different stories being told here, and sometimes you simply can't take what Togashi was setting up in the early days as set in stone gospel. In fact, you can't really take anything as set in stone, because Togashi is a man whose mind will never settle. He just keeps moving from idea to idea to idea, and he's much more interested in playing out those scenarios than he is in strictly enforcing the canon of the world. Which is fine, by the way. I mean, I'd probably give a lot of other authors a pretty hard time about that kind of thing, but in Togashi's case, it works much more in favor of the series than it does against it. But ultimately, did Jing abandon Gon? Well, no he didn't, but also yes he did. I mean, pretty much no, but also mostly yes. And mostly yes is also the answer to our question of whether or not you would like another video, because there's always more to learn, explore, and experience with this wonderful series, so I look forward to seeing you there.